Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you on a Thursday morning with one Adam Ship my money share. Adam, talk to me. How are you now that the workday is back? We're on the grind. We've got to wake up and do things. No more holidays. Is that cramping your style?
No, I'm enjoying it. I like having stuff to do. I don't necessarily like having stuff to do until 10:30 at night when Joel Embiid decides if he's going to play or not. But no, it's been nice to get back in a routine and slowly starting to know what day of the week it is and stuff like that.
It did get a little confusing. My wife yesterday, and I thought it was Wednesday. She thought it was Monday. So we were both
I thought it was Sunday every day for the last 6 days.
Yeah, the holidays tend to muck you up when you're not going out to work or traveling somewhere because the days all start to blend together. But anyway, you've got us coming here. We're, of course, recording on a Wednesday night. This is your Early Bird First Look podcast, your foundational podcast to take a look at the three games we have for the NBA going on Thursday. No Thursday night football, of course, that ended in week 16. So we've got the starting to head into the doldrums where it's NBA only, which is fine. We'll kind of wind down. We have another 4 weeks of NFL games culminating in the Super Bowl. But then it gets really hard because when that week-long NBA All-Star break appears, yikes, you're going to be looking at hockey. You're going to be looking at MMA. You'll be looking ahead to NASCAR for any of the All-Star shootouts. Ugh,
I need to figure out where I'm going on vacation for that.
Yes, plan ahead this year, touts. And
yeah, I don't want to end up in St. Louis again.
Ooh, good times there. A little cold, though. A little cold.
Yeah.
But in any event, you want to check out all of the fun premium content we have behind the paywall. You can use the promo code EarlyBird, all one word, and you will get 1 free week of any package that you choose. If you go and pick one with the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, you will get that as part of the package. You have up to a week to cancel. And if you cancel any time during that first week, you won't get charged, and you'll still get to play out everything for 1 week. But give us a try. We've got a lot of good stuff there behind the paywall. And golf is ramping up, and we have some new members of our golf content team. So you'll definitely want to check that out. Adam, a couple injury news and notes. We just have the three games here, but for Toronto, of course, we have Kyle Lowry and Jonas Valanciunas still out. Rudy Gay is on the very doubtful side of doubtful, so he probably will not be playing for San Antonio. For Denver, we had Gary Harris and Paul Millsap return. That was Millsap's second game, Harris's first. Will Barton is still out, but he should be playing within the next week or two is their best guess. With Houston, we do know that James Ennis will be back from his hamstring injury, and then we know that Eric Gordon is going to be out with his knee injury, but he may only miss another game or two. They said they don't expect that to be a long affected thing. So those are our injuries that we need to keep an eye on. Of course, who knows what's going to happen? Even though there are only 6 teams in play, somebody could get the flu. We've got respectable over-unders here. We've got 216 in the Toronto and San Antonio game. That one's in San Antonio. Spurs favored by a bucket. We've got Denver at Sacramento. Denver favored on the road by 3, 228 over-under. And then we've got Houston heading into Oracle Arena to take on the Golden State Warriors. Golden State home favorites by 9, 225 over-under. Adam, let's go game by game here since we have just 3 of them. Let's start off with that first game of the night, and I will just let you take the lead from here. Toronto and San Antonio, what do you got here for the Raptors?
Yeah, so, I mean, Kyle Lowry's still not playing, so you obviously look to Kawhi Leonard, who has about a 32.5% usage rate without Lowry on the floor this year, still affordably priced on DraftKings at 8,800, and he's always valuable on FanDuel as well because you have to roster 2 small forwards at a not very good position. Going against the San Antonio team where, if you want to buy into narratives, I think this is as good a narrative to buy into as any with Kawhi going back to San Antonio. But on top of that, it's just a perfectly fine spot. It's not a San Antonio defense that really concerns you, and that you would expect to slow down Kawhi. So really like the spot for Kawhi. Fred VanVleet, kind of a secondary play, more appealing with it being a 3-game slate than he had been on previous slates. When he plays alongside Kawhi without Lowry on the floor, he's about a 0.75 fantasy point per minute player, which gives you a decent projection, nothing earth-shattering for him. Serge Ibaka, Pascal Siakam, I think both appealing plays, especially Siakam, just playing really, really well. Went through a bit of a slump, but has busted out of that. Should get 34 to 36 minutes here and is still, very affordably priced.
It's funny hearing everybody talk about Fred VanVleet, and I am the one waving my arms saying, you guys really don't want to play him. You really don't want to play him because, of course, I have that silly little contest, the Fred Van Elite Fan Club. We're going with number 40 on Thursday. For New Year's, we ramped it up to 50 and actually filled it. Since this is just a 3-game slate, I'll probably only make it 20 or 25 since I know a lot of people won't be playing this one. But go ahead and check that out. I wanted to look at his price over on Yahoo. He is 18 on Yahoo, a little bit more palatable there than it is on DraftKings. But the one thing you want to remember about Yahoo is the minimum there is $10. And you can get some other options, like including teammate DeLon Wright or some of these other guys at $10 and use that $9 elsewhere. So definitely check out stuff like that. If you've not yet signed up for Yahoo, if you already have a Yahoo Fantasy account, that's fine. As long as you have not yet made a daily fantasy deposit, you can use the promo code AWESEMO and they will match your first $30 in your first deposit. They will give you that in Yahoo player points, which are available for immediate use into any contest. Currently, they are running no management fee contests. We don't get the added money to the prize pool, but they are running for the rest of this week no rake contests for basketball. Those have been filling up quickly. They also have a very ambitious one, $20, $500,000. That's right, $500,000 NFL one for the playoff weekend. No management fee on that. I would be surprised if that got more than 80% full, 85% full. So there should be some actual real overlay in that, even though they're not adding to that prize pool. Check out the AWESEMO homepage for articles for Yahoo for free. All right, Adam. DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard. You mentioned Kawhi. How you feeling about DeMar? It's not like he was wanting to leave Toronto.
Yeah, and it's an affordable price tag on him as well, sitting at $7,800 on DraftKings. Guy plays 38 minutes a night in competitive games. I do expect that he draws plenty of Kawhi Leonard's attention, which is clearly concerning, especially when you have a lot of other appealing spots on the San Antonio team for one reason or another. You have LaMarcus Aldridge, who is still affordable. He started at power forward against the Celtics, but still played about 24 minutes at center. You got 20 minutes from Jakob Poeltl. You got 5 or 6 minutes from Gasol. You got the rest, 22 to 24 minutes from LaMarcus Aldridge. So still, those productive center minutes for him. Played about 36 minutes in that game. And since I expect DeMar DeRozan to draw Kawhi Leonard's attention, I think that maybe you see a little bit more opportunities for LaMarcus Aldridge. So I prefer him to DeRozan, but then you also have value on this team with Rudy Gay doubtful. We saw Poeltl play about 20 minutes against the Celtics, which isn't great, but at a $3,500 price tag, that's enough, that he's a viable option on a 3-game slate. We got almost 31 minutes out of Davis Bertans, who is still really cheap, $3,800 on DraftKings. You have Bellinelli, who is only $3,400 and should play, somewhere around 24 minutes, 22 to 24 minutes. And then even Derek White, who's been playing really, really well, playing 28 to 30 minutes a night at a sub 5K price tag. Even though Toronto is not a team that we like to take players against, with Rudy Gay being out and the price tags on a lot of these Spurs, kind of secondary players, you actually have some pretty nice value here.
Yeah, Derek White's one of the guys. He ripped off a career high 22 points in his last game, rolled to 36 DraftKings points, did quite nicely over there. I had him on a ton of my teams. He was $14 that day on Yahoo. He is 16 there. I would rather play White than I would play Van Vliet for that $3 discount. Plus, I think he has a little bit higher upside. So we'll have to see what happens there. Anything else from our first game?
No, I think that about covers it. Just kind of a surprisingly appealing game for a Toronto and San Antonio game.
Well, it's beautiful when you've got a few key players out because that makes things just a little easier. I mean, both these teams over the last 30 days are 23 and 22 in pace. We have Toronto at 13 in net rating. We have the Spurs are first in net rating, which is pretty hilarious. That's, of course, offensive minus defensive rating gets your net. So usually about the top 10 or 11 teams in the league are generally positive. If you're a top 5 team, that means your offense is way better your offense is even better than your defense. You get to the mid pack and you start to go into the negatives. You see some pretty ugly numbers. Looking at you, Atlanta Hawks. This is the middle game of the night. We have Denver and Sacramento. They're both middle of the pack in net rating. We have Denver in the last 30 days is 24th in pace. We have Sacramento second in pace. As I mentioned, Barton is going to be out. We've got Gary Harris back. We've got Paul Millsap back. Should see potentially a little bit of a tick up in their minutes. That's going to affect some of the other guys we got used to playing. Let's focus on Denver first. In that game when they had both Millsap and Harris back, Adam, the surprising guy off the bench was Malik Beasley. Out of nowhere, just absolutely crushed it there against New York. What are you liking here from Denver now that they're starting to get back to full health?
So with Harris and Millsap back, it makes it scary going to some of these secondary guys on the Nuggets. Obviously, there's still upside. You had a career game from Malik Beasley, who played 30 minutes, shot really, really well. And, obviously the upside's still there. It's just that you're going to see, I think, more of a hot hand situation between Monte Morris and Malik Beasley. I expect Torrey Craig to be the one that takes the biggest hit from Gary Harris being back. Craig has been playing essentially because of his defensive abilities, and once Gary Harris is ramped up, that's where I expect a lot of his minutes to come from. And we kind of saw that happen in the game against the Knicks, where Torrey Craig did not play at all in the fourth quarter. You got some Gary Harris, and then you had Morris and Beasley both close the game. So, Harris played about 20 minutes in that game. Assuming we get a few more minutes from him, it just makes Craig basically completely unappealing, and then it makes Morris and Beasley even riskier. Paul Millsap is the one that's really interesting to me, though. He played about 14 minutes in his first game back. He played 22 and a half minutes against the Knicks, and he closed that game over Mason Plumlee. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is the game where Millsap rejoins the starting lineup in place of Plumlee. But even if he doesn't, I think that expecting 26 to 28 minutes out of Millsap, with him probably closing that game out, is very realistic. And in this matchup against Sacramento at just a $5,200 price tag, I think Millsap's a very, very good play, especially if people are going to, continue projecting him for like 22 minutes because that's what he played last game. I'm not sure if that'll be the case or not, but it would just keep his ownership down. So I like Millsap here. And then, obviously a phenomenal spot for Nikola Jokic, who does everything while he's on the floor. We just saw what Yusuf Nurkic did through the Sacramento front court, dropping 88 fantasy points on them a couple of nights ago. So, Jokic still playing 34 to 36 minutes, I think, is a very strong play here as well.
Yeah, absolutely love that one, and loved the Nurkic game as well. I did like your analysis of that in the deep dive article. That was a nice in-depth look, plus some counterpoint on some of our other options. That, again, is behind the paywall. As I mentioned, use the promo code EarlyBird, and you get 1 week free of all awesome premium content. Adam writes a gigantic in-depth article called The Deep Dive on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Lofty takes care of that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it is, I think, the best article in the industry for basketball. Moving over here to the other side, slightly disappointing game there from De'Aaron Fox. Shot just wasn't really falling. He still had 19 attempts. That's the second most that he has had in the last 2 weeks, but he only made, let me do the math. What did he make? 3 of them, 4 of them? He shot 31%. Yikes. That is not very good, but he saw a major price drop on DraftKings, so I think he's someone you can look at. Willie Cauley-Stein, your mileage may vary. He's the consummate garbage man, lives in the paint, gets rebounds, gets putbacks, not much else. So I'm not really a fan of his, but I don't mind Bogdanovic there. He is checking in at 5,800, slight price ticking up for him, but he's not bad. And then you've got Nemanja Bjelica, Adam. We've got some options here coming from the Kings. How are you ranking them?
Yeah, it's kind of like an awkward spot, though, because Denver's not a bad team defensively. And you have like all those cheap guys on San Antonio, and then you have the more appealing guys on Denver. So I'm not sure how much I'll actually be prioritizing Sacramento. I think that Cauley-Stein is appealing just because of the center options on this slate. It's not really the deepest position. You have Clint Capella, who obviously we'll talk about in that last game, but Jokic is, up at the top. You have Jakob Poeltl, as a value guy. You have Ibaka as a decent play, but Cauley-Stein's, a slightly over 1 fantasy point per minute guy who should play around 34 minutes here. So I think that he probably ends up being a useful piece of roster construction as, a mid-range center. You mentioned the price drop on De'Aaron Fox on DraftKings. I think that's really important to note because, he struggled against Portland, but the minutes are still there. He played 38 minutes, including overtime. You're going to normally get around 34 minutes from him in regulation. He's still, a 25 to 26% usage guy who over the last month or so has an assist percentage up around 36%. He's really good. It's not a great matchup, but the price tag more than makes up for that. So I think that's something that you can certainly look to take advantage of, especially on DraftKings. And then you get into guys like Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich that I think are more or less correctly priced. They still have upside, but it's just more often than not, you're going to get a good but not great game out of them for their price point.
All right. A good point there on the Nuggets for their defensive efficiency. On the season, they're 9th in the league. Over the last 30 days, they drop all the way down to 18th. But remember, no Paul Millsap, no Gary Harris. We have major changes to their rotation now and upgrades with some of the lesser players not getting as many minutes. So if you've gotten used to enjoying teams going against Denver, think again because things have definitely changed. Anything else on this one, or shall we hit the nightcap?
No, I think we can move on to that Rockets game.
All right. Houston, Golden State. Should be a fun one. We've got, let's see, Houston playing at the 25th pace over the last 30 days. Golden State Warriors, the 5th fastest pace. We've got a 225 over under, and we've got Golden State favored by 9 at home. James Harden. Oh, and James Harden. How are you feeling about him going again without Chris Paul? No Eric Gordon. We will have Ennis. James Ennis will return, but I don't think that's going to impact a ton with Harden.
Yeah, it shouldn't. And I love Harden. Again, I've liked him basically every game without Chris Paul. He's playing out of his mind. You get a usage rate up around 42% without Paul. If you take Gordon off the floor, you get it up to about 44%. And he just plays 38 to 40 minutes as well. It's a pace up spot for Houston. There's really just nothing to dislike about Harden. And normally it would come with the caveat that it's a 3-game slate and there might not be much value. But as we've already talked about, there's a bunch of, $3,400, $3,500 guys on the Spurs that are serviceable enough that, they'll let you get up to Harden. And then on FanDuel, obviously you can drop a player, so it's easier anyway. So, Harden, there's no reason for me to dislike Harden.
They are on a 5-game winning streak, coinciding with Harden becoming the undisputed guy. They have won, 10 of their last 11. That's pretty good. Things have turned around. What's changed? Oh, yeah, no Carmelo Anthony. Moving on down, Clint Capella is somewhat intriguing. He will be doing battle with Draymond Green, of course, Kevon Looney, etc. Anything here from the front court that you like for Houston, or are you ready to transition over to Golden State?
Yeah, take everything I've said about Willie Cauley-Stein being kind of in a price range by himself and really appealing and just throw that out the window because I hadn't actually looked at Capella's DraftKings price. He's $6,900. That's absolutely absurd. Like, there's just no reason Clint Capella should be $6,900 ever in any matchup. He's easily athletic enough to stay on the floor in this game against Golden State. He becomes slightly more productive when he's playing solely alongside James Harden without Chris Paul out there. You get a little bit more pick and roll action between Harden and Capella. I would guess, obviously we're doing this the night before. I would be very surprised if Capella is not one of my highest owned players.
I would agree. That's definitely part of the pricing over there on DK. The last 4 games he has played against Golden State, I'm not looking to see who was injured or who was not, but he is averaging right at 31 DraftKings points, and that's stretching back to the beginning of last season. So no monster games there, but of course that doesn't mean that can't change. And we know that he's, as shockingly as it is to say this, I guess he's the number 2 scoring option right now on the Rockets, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and keep in mind too, and you mentioned, you can't really take anything from previous games, but also Capella's just better this year than he's ever been. So, that obviously is important also.
All right, heading over here to Golden State. If you were going to choose between Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, what would be your deciding point?
It would be Durant because I'm looking at DraftKings pricing, but he's cheaper there. Small forward obviously is a more valuable position as well. So yeah, I mean, I would lean there. I think that they both are perfectly fine plays, but I'd lean to Durant over Curry if I have to choose between them.
All right. On Yahoo, of course, different players. Now, Yahoo has, point guard, shooting guard, et cetera, what we're used to seeing, but they don't have multi-position eligibility. You do get one utility spot. But Durant is 45 there. Curry is 35. Capella is 32. For perspective, Harden is 58. And then the only player more expensive than Durant is Kawhi Leonard, and then Jokic is in there at 44. He's a buck above Curry. You could get 3 of the $40 guys on your team. Shouldn't be a huge issue because we know we have a couple $10 players so we can get there. If you try to get Harden, you may have to drop down, like comparing with Harden, Capella, and then one of the $40 guys. So just pointing that out. Looking at the front court here, continuing with Durant, Draymond, Clay, I guess. The rotations have changed. You brought that up a few times. Kevon Looney making random contributions and appearances here. Jonas Jerebko seems to maybe be slightly falling out of favor, but I can't tell for sure. What do you got here with the rest of Steve Kerr's wizardry?
Yeah, so I mean, Draymond's price has gotten to a point where it's really difficult not to like him. He's obviously not playing well. He's not shooting well, but he still just does so much when he's on the floor in terms of rebounding and assists. And, the price tag just takes into account how poorly he's been playing. So I will continue to roster him. Clay is fine. Like I prefer Draymond at a very similar price point, but I don't have an issue with Clay. As far as Kevon Looney goes, the minutes kind of all over the place. We've seen some games where he plays 26. He was in foul trouble, though, against the Suns in their last game. He picked up 1 foul in his first stint, picked up his second and third foul within 2 minutes of subbing back in the second quarter, picked up a 4th foul 2 minutes into the third quarter, and then just never came back into the game in what became a very unappealing game. So, I mean, not unappealing, non-competitive game. So I do think that you can still project Looney for 24 to 26 minutes here against Houston.
All right, I wanted to get a little perspective here on Draymond. Can't remember if I've done this on one of our Saturday shows or I've done it on a previous podcast, but for his career, he is a 44% shooter. He is shooting barely over 40% this season. Three-pointers are dramatically down. He's shooting 24.5% this season. He's a career 32.5% shooter. Free throws, actually having his second best season since his rookie year. So I don't know what the deal is, what the issue is. Who knows? But the price making it somewhat enticing. So we'll definitely want to go to that. Any other thoughts here as we wrap up our short 3-game preview podcast?
Just keep in mind, listening to the podcast and as we go through the games, we're trying to give you, our opinion breaking down the slate on who looks like the best plays. But on these short slates, if you're playing tournaments, it becomes more important than ever to really be factoring ownership into what you're doing, if you want to actually turn a profit over the course of a season. So just, keep that in mind that on slates of this size, you really should be looking for any edge you can get as far as pivots go, even if it's not quite like an optimal play.
Absolutely, and that's a very valid point. One other thing that you can consider, particularly in these 2 and 3 game slates, the late slates, et cetera, don't play your normal heavy volume. Back it off a little bit because it's going to be very, very, very hard to find an edge. And the one that's still kind of left at this point is if you can have some good projected ownership for the field. If you want to use the promo code EarlyBird, you can get a full week of the proprietary ownership projections from one Alex Baker. You know him better as Osmo, but we have those for FanDuel and for DraftKings for basketball, baseball, and for football. So check that out. You can find Adam on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and you can follow the Osmo account at Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.